You're live.
Good morning. Welcome to the Serious Town Council Committee of the Whole meeting. It's Tuesday, August 24th, 2021, and it's 1 minute after 9 o'clock. So we have a full house here today. We have some delegations, lots of staff. Mayor McCordoff is away on vacation, and I'll be sitting in the mayor's chair today. And we are joined by Councillor Brian Harvey via Zoom. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and first thing on the agenda is the approval of some agenda lead items. Second, any comments or anything? So we'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Next item on the agenda, we'll adopt some minutes from the Committee of the Whole from August 10th, 2021. Council? Councillor King? And all in favor? That's carried. And we have some delegations this morning. That's the next agenda item. First on the list is the Serious Bike Club, and they're going to talk to us about some trail action on Kruger Mountain. And we're being presented by Kenton and
this is Matt.
William.
Right. Here, I'll just distribute these. Just got a couple of different copies. I don't know if everybody got a copy of the PDF presentation. A couple of different versions there. So this is just a map of the trails, just in case we need to reference anything. Would you like one?
Yeah,
sure.
What?
Sorry.
Hey, you've been on.
I have two.
So whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Sure. Good morning. My name is Matt Williams. Kent and I are executive members of the Serious Bike Club. And we're here today to just talk to you about the trail network that's on Kruger Mountain. It was some time ago that our network actually got shut down by BC Parks, strangely enough. The trail network has been up there for probably, I don't know, longer than I've been here. I've lived in Osoyoos for about 11 years, and me, along with Kenton and a few other dedicated volunteers, we've been maintaining and improving the trail network for that long time. And I guess with COVID-19 happening, it pushed a lot of people outside. So a lot of people started enjoying trails, and activity increased on the trails, and they were noticed by BC Parks, and they chose to shut them down as they were what they described as unsanctioned. So we kind of went through a bit of a, I wouldn't call it a battle, but back and forth with BC Parks over this matter. And it started off with blockading the trails, and then we started a petition, and that was signed by, I think it was about 500 people, to keep the trails and to remove the blockades. BC Parks responded with allowing people to ride the trails again, basically, is what the message was. And but it just really highlighted the fact that the trails that are out there are in need of protection, need of sanctioning, because at any moment they could just say, we don't want them, taking them away. And it's a bit of a complex matter with the national park coming in, but what we're looking for from the town would be support. As highlighted in the presentation that Kent forwarded you guys, a mountain bike and hiking and network is extremely beneficial to the municipality, right? Tourism and money for small businesses and things like that. And anyways, it's paramount to save these trails, and we just really need some support, maybe some connections, maybe a phone call or a letter or whatever the town can offer in that regard.
I might just clarify really quick, just in case, I don't know how familiar you are with the idea of sanctioning, but so the only difference, there are sanctioned trails in Oliver. They're also part of the Okanagan, what's it called, the South Okanagan Grasslands Protected Area. So that BC Parks protected area stretches all the way from the border up through all over into the White Lake area. And the difference between a sanctioned and an unsanctioned trail is simply that the local municipalities and the BC government have said, yes, these are good for use. It says nothing about the quality of the trails or their usage or their history. And so really, BC Parks coming in and shutting the trails down was simply that we haven't gone through this process yet.
Yeah,
So this is the first step in the process of sanctioning the trails that probably should have been done 10, 15 years ago. It's just been such a small local ridership that there was never any pressure.
Mhm.
But the second they came in and barricaded and said, these aren't sanctioned, well, now it's time to start the process.
yeah. A big point I brought up when I spoke with Wendy Pope and actually the ranger that started shutting the trails was that Osoyoos, the local area, has 0 kilometers of single track trails that are sanctioned. Not a single one. It just kind of blows my mind that a municipality or an area can have 0 trails. You know, the Strawberry Creek track is a sanctioned hiking trail, but it's what we call 2-track, right? You can drive a car up there. And there's really a need in this area. And they didn't understand that need, I guess. And Wendy Pope actually apologized for the closure of the trails and even described the actions of the ranger as overzealous. So,
Yeah, we went through a lot of studies. Immediately when they started closing them down, we thought, you know, what's the benefit here? You know, obviously we like using them, but who else uses them, and what are the benefits to the local community? And I think it became clear very quickly that they're not just used by mountain bikers. We went to Chief Louis. We've got a letter from the Osoyoos Indian Band.
Yeah.
Saying these trails have a long history that predates the park by quite a bit. That park's been there for 20 years now. These trails have been used for decades before that. And I think that's evidence. As soon as you go up there, you can see a lot of these trails are based on old cattle lines and logging roads that have been there for 40, 60 years, some of them.
Yeah.
So that was sort of priority one, was to get a sense of what is the history, you know, is there enough usage was the next thing. And I think it's quite important too. Again, it's a small community, and so it's a small network of users. But there are equine users, there are hikers, there are mountain bikers. It's used by all sorts of people.
bird watchers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you go beyond the idea that it's beneficial for tourism, and there's a lot of information again in that PDF document. There have been a lot of studies conducted over the last few decades about who mountain bike tourists are, how much money they bring when they are touring around. Looks like the demographics are similar, if not more affluent than golf tourism, for example. But it's also important to the locals, you know, in the summertime, especially here. There's a lot of beach, there's a lot of lake, there's a lot of wine. There's not a ton to do if you want to get away from that stuff. You can still recreate outside. And that's kind of, you know, it's been a draw for us to the area.
The area is actually very uniquely positioned as well, like around Osoyoos. The proximity to town is amazing. The ability to what we call shuttle, right, to drive up Highway 3 and get on, drop bikes at the top and ride down. The access, right, is amazing compared to other communities where you might have to drive down a logging road for half an hour, 45, even an hour to get to a bike trailhead. The proximity is just amazing. Like the Kruger Mountain area is perfect.
It's the only network of its kind, I should interject as well. Princeton has a handful of trails, not a large network, but they're well maintained. You have to go out to Midway to find something similar. And then the White Lake area has some trails, but they're not like these. You'd have to go as far as Penticton.
They're not officially sanctioned yet, though.
That's true.
They're working on
also
it.
not sanctioned.
Yeah.
So within about an hour's drive. So it's not only important for locals to be able to access this type of thing and not have to go out of town to find it, but it's a draw. If people are, we were just talking about this last night, if people are driving from Vancouver to the Kootenays to go mountain biking, Osoyoos is right in the middle. And if you've got a network of trails like this here, again, as far as tourism dollars go, this is a very shoulder season activity. Osoyoos is one of the only places in Canada where you can ride these types of trails in November and February with no snow on the ground, a lot of them still. So from a tourism perspective and a town income perspective, it seems like a bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And the big selling point that we tried to emphasize in that document is that we have already done the work. The trails are there.
Yeah.
There are towns out there that spend tens of thousands of dollars to bring people in to engineer this type of thing. And we've done the work. All we
Yeah.
need is to keep them. Really.
Yeah, so we're hopefully going through the process with BC Parks to start sanctioning in November, and something from the town would really help with that. The network does fall on nature trust land as well and crown land, so we have to approach all three bodies. So, I mean, anything the town can offer for that would be greatly beneficial.
Yeah, really, the ask is simple. Again, I don't know how many of you might have seen the document, but the ask is very simply a letter of support. Possibly address all three different bodies, but something similar to what Chief Louis said. It's about convincing you that these trails are important to the community and its residents and for tourism, and to just lend that support in the form of a letter so that we can take it to BC Parks and say, this is important to the town. And then it's not just, a handful of mountain bikers and horseback riders saying we want to keep. So,
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation. I know I've been following Matt's work up there for quite a few years now. I can't remember how long, but a long time. And I can attest to the hard work that goes into kind of creating those trails up there anyway.
Yeah.
So we'd like to kind of open it up for questions.
Sure.
Councillor Bennett has a question.
Thank you for the presentation. Being involved in bike trails and stuff in particular, I think the biggest concern would be the liability question. And I'm also background insurance. So basically, once you become sanctioned, then basically, because it's not in town, it's not part of the town, so the town insurance doesn't cover it. And you guys with liability insurance, once you say it's a sanctioned trail, then you start looking at insurance costs and different things. So you want to make sure you kind of look at that, and what kind of caution you get involved, because once you become sanctioned, somebody gets hurt up there, they're going to sue the province and everybody else, and they're going to sue any society. So if you guys are in a society, that's something we want to look at, because that's going to be your biggest, scariest thing.
Appreciate that. Yeah, we're looking into that, and I guess typically there's an association that kind of covers that in a group manner. If our bike club becomes members with that association, so
Exactly.
and then we cover it through membership costs and things like that. So yeah, thank you.
Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you. I guess my question is, if the Sawyer's Bike Club, is it like a non-profit organization or just a group of people?
It's nonprofit, we're official. Yeah. Yeah, we're established, incorporated. Yeah. We're still forming though, I suppose. We haven't started collecting membership dues yet.
Oh, I appreciate that, but you're registered in Victoria.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'd like to ask staff, would you like a resolution? Is that part of the process today or?
Okay.
Yes, yeah, go
I
ahead.
have a question.
Yeah.
I did read your proposal. Actually, it was awesome. And I do think, the benefit of having sanctioned trails in a Suisse or close to a Suisse is good. You mentioned that the trails here could be used 12 months of the year, as opposed to even all over and Penticton. What about signage and stuff like that? If it gets sanctioned, would the province provide that stuff, and would they monitor any of those things?
It's a good question. I think, because it's probably going to change hands in the next few years. I'm not sure who that would fall under. I know locally, the group in Oliver has been responsible for putting up the signs before BC Parks has even come in. But I assume that, the signs would be updated and maintained by whatever body is in charge after that.
Yeah, I mean, that might be something that's tricky, because some of it's Crown, some of it's BC Parks. But as far as I understand, BC Parks in other places has provided signage and likely maintained by the local volunteers.
It's been a bit of a chicken egg battle over the last. We've been talking about this for a couple of years, and finally just our hand was played when they came in and barricaded the trail access up at the top. But it was basically that chicken and egg battle of how much do we develop and put up signs so that people are using the right trails without gaining too much attention and having too much ridership where they start to get shut down. And eventually it just came to a head. So I think we're all very anxious to get them sanctioned so we can get signage up and get people using the proper trails. And
It might sound kind of strange, this whole thing but it seems to be the process in Canada and BC that trails develop naturally through riders or volunteers or whoever, and then they're discovered and they're forced to be sanctioned. In fact, it's the first time happened in Kalamalka Lake, Cal Lake area, Vernon, and they've got a wildly successful trail network up there. Williams Lake is the same thing. once the stuff is discovered and the stakeholders say it's getting out of control, there's too many people up there, too many people building or whatever, then it's a way to use the land properly, right? It's to regulate it so that it's all proper code and you don't get dangerous situations and people using the park in a way that's they're not supposed to, right? So
I would assume also that like you couldn't bring any events here unless it was sanctioned.
Correct.
Obviously.
Councillor King.
I got one more question. If these trails got sanctioned, are horses still allowed to use those trails?
I would absolutely hope so. I mean, there would be a grading of the trails of multi-use, right? So like, in fact, the one that they barricaded previously is a horse trail.
Yeah.
And that's what I told them, like, you've closed a horse trail and a bird watcher trail. It's just something that mountain bikers get to the other trails on, type thing. And I would advocate for mixed use, absolutely.
I think probably a limited delineation might be smart. There are a couple of very steep trails that, you know, for mountain
Yeah.
bikers coming down the hill quickly, you don't want somebody hiking up with their dog.
It'd be an assessment of what can be mixed use and what would be mountain bike dedicated or even hiker dedicated, absolutely.
And yeah, to be clear, you know, what's on the map there, if anybody has any questions about what they're looking at, but on the map, that's basically a network of trails that there are far more trails than what you see on that map. And that's what we think with our current membership, we can probably maintain properly. And that's what we would present to BC Parks. And they may look at even that small selection of trails, they may look at that and say, this is a sensitive area. So we'll allow you to keep this one, we won't allow this one. Who knows what the eventual network will look like? But that's sort of what we plan to present to them.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'd like to ask staff again how we proceed with this letter. Do we want to debate it now or look for a report?
Your worship, normally we wouldn't entertain requests of delegations at the same meeting. We do it at the subsequent meeting. If council likes, we bring this back to a regular meeting. I have a question of these gentlemen as well. The letter from Chief Louis and most of your presentation focused on the trails on Mount Kruger, but you talked about Mount Cobo as well. Did you want support to indicate sanctioning trails on Mount Cobo as well?
Well, I just kind of realized last night again, as we were kind of talking about how to present this today, that maybe we should have used the wording, the South Okanagan Grasslands Protected Area. There is Nature Trust area. Most of the trails, I'd say 90% of them fall within the Grasslands Protected Area, which exists on Cobo as well.
Yeah.
And getting back to what I was saying about maintenance, the problem with Cobo is that it's much larger and we have a small ridership at this point. So the ability to maintain those trails, it starts to get a little, like we're spreading ourselves a little too thin.
Okay, so
There are a
focus
couple-
on the one area.
Well, and so
So,
this
yeah.
map is just Kruger. There is another map in the presentation that includes a couple of lines on Cobo. At the moment, we don't probably have the manpower to maintain those properly.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So it's really up to the council committee if they want to entertain, if they want to direct us to a letter of support.
We bring it back this afternoon.
There we go.
So just for clarity, we have a process that we have to follow with everything that we do here. And everything requires debate, of course, and so what I was asking is what staff's desire was, so they will come back this afternoon with a report. We'll add it to this afternoon's agenda. Seems pretty clear that it might be this afternoon. If not, it would be deferred to the next meeting if it's not achievable today. Council will debate it and will pass a resolution of the letter will be provided if it's successful at that point.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And you need a motion to move it to this afternoon, and just move it to this afternoon.
We'll just add it when you approve the agenda this afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
We all kind of looked at each other there.
All right, thanks, guys.
I was
Okay,
kind of wondered what was going on. It was
Little sign language going on here.
next delegation that we have is Sergeant Jason Bailey is going to give us a report on some of the crime activity in our community.
Thank you, Councilor Rose, I guess I should say, your worship today.
Acting Mary.
And thank you, Councilor Still. So yes, I'm here to speak to the quarter two stats, policing stats for Soyuz. As you, I think you have all have a copy with you or on your computer, sir? So I just have the Soyuz page. I believe you have all the other towns, so you can do a comparison if you wish, but I generalize look at the Soyuz stats. As you know, we look at the percentage comparison between the Q1 and Q2, as well as the Q2 from 2020 compared to 2021. I prefer to really concentrate more on the year-to-date, because the quarters you're only looking at a 3-month period, and they're going to fluctuate quite often. You're going to see crime going up or crime going down in over a couple of months, but it's the year-to-date that really paints a picture of how we're doing. So obviously the most concerning stuff that we always want to look at is the violent crime. Happy to say that this quarter and this year-to-date, the violent crime is stayed relatively the same, but in most areas it's actually gone down in Australia. So we're good on that side. With that, I'm going to go right into our property crime. Property crimes are our #1 crime that we deal with in Osoyoos. And it's a crime that a lot of towns are dealing with right now. I'm going to go down on the list right down to theft from vehicles, and there's a bit of a method to my madness here. I'll speak to the other ones as well, but theft from vehicles, if you notice, when we look at the numbers, year-to-date has certainly been our biggest increase. We went from last year at this time, we had 20 thefts from vehicles. This year we have 53, so an increase of 33, which works out to 165% increase over the year-to-date stats. Of that, those theft from vehicles, 41% of those were thefts from the exterior of the vehicle, most commonly license plates and valve tags. And so that's a theft that's very difficult to prevent, in a sense. That's no fault to the owner of the vehicle at all. These are groups that are stealing vehicles, and what they'll do is they'll usually try and find a like vehicle, either the same make and color, and steal a license plate, because the owners of the vehicle where the license plate was stolen doesn't always notice that. Or they'll switch license plates. So when you come up to your car and you see license plate on your vehicle, you don't notice yours is missing. This person will drive around in that stolen vehicle, and if the police come either behind it or come across it, and they run the license plate, everything looks normal. It's got license plate associated to that make and that color, and that person continues driving. So that's kind of a method they're using to be able to use that stolen vehicle for a longer duration of time. A small percentage of the theft from the outside of vehicles was also catalytic converters. So we had a few of those stolen, and we've heard in the news that that's been a common issue. It's over the last number of years, the value of the metals in the catalytic converter are such, and it's been probably expressed a little bit too much in the media that a lot of criminals are realizing that there's a valuable commodity there. So it's a difficult one to enforce or to police. There needs to be some different laws put in place that restrict the ability for someone to trade those in for profit. 34% of the theft from vehicles were from unlocked vehicles. So these are what we consider thefts that could have been preventable. When I get into the unlocked vehicles, 9% of those thefts from unlocked vehicles involved the theft of garage door openers. So 9% sounds like a lot. It's only in this case it's only 3, but garage door openers are stolen often as a means to get into a person's residence, usually through their garage. And if their door from their interior garage to the interior house is open, then a person's in there quite easily without any force. What we would like to do is recommend to people that when you have a garage door opener in your vehicle, keep it somewhere that's obviously accessible to you, but not in a public view. So either in a locked glove box or a locked console, somewhere that where if they do get into your vehicle, they actually have to use force to find that item. Most cases, thefts of garage door openers are from an unlocked vehicle. So they're going to, again, they're looking for the really easy way into a residence. So with those, with that kind of moves into my talk about break and enter other, where we saw in this quarter an increase from an increase to 5, a total of 5, compared to 1 in the previous quarter. So although that doesn't sound like a lot, some of those were thefts. When I say other, those were thefts of garage or thefts or breaking enters into garages. Again, no forced use, so we suspect that it's the same person that was stealing these garage door openers going into these garages. So it just reflects that the theft of a vehicle or theft from a vehicle, transitions into the theft from houses and break and enters into houses. Auto theft, we went from, in a quarter, we went from 2 up to 5. We're on par with where we were year to date last year, and 8 total. But a lot of the thefts from vehicles we had this year, we're finding those vehicles in, what we're finding is we're finding a vehicle that was stolen from the Lower Mainland or northern BC, dumped into our area and anywhere through the Okanagan here. And then a vehicle from here, all over and all the other towns taken and then located back in either Lower Mainland or northern BC. We do have a suspect group identified in those, and we believe that the group that was stealing those vehicles is also responsible for the many of the thefts from vehicles and the break and enter to residences. The one main player of that was taken into custody in the Lower Mainland and is on some conditions now, where he has to basically reside at a residence down there. So we're hoping that the next quarter we should see a drop in that. But unfortunately, we have seen in the past too, where when we catch one, there's always someone to take their place. So for the next numbers will hopefully reflect a decrease. Depends on how many he did, and between this report and when he was caught. Frauds, there's a slight increase in frauds. The year to date, we went from 22 to 31, so a 41% increase. The majority of the frauds that we're speaking about here are telephone fraud. So these are, it's rampant. You all have probably received these calls either on your cell phone or your home phone where someone's saying they're either CRA or CDSA, telling you that they intercepted a package with your name on it and a legal substance. Almost all of these files are files reported for information only. So there's someone that received a call, didn't interact with the people, but notified us, so files created. There were, and we still do get the odd person that does respond to them and transports money or transfers money through different means, whatever the call center is asking for. So again, we just ask people that if they're receiving a phone call from anyone, trying to say that they're from a certain agency and they're asking for money, know that agencies are not going to be asking for money over the phone. Also know that you can call that actual agency back to find out if they're actually looking for you or not. A lot of times, unfortunately, they're using a spoof number. So they may say that they're from the Soyuz RCMP. You'll look at your call display and see the Soyuz RCMP phone number. But if you phone that number back, you're going to actually get us. You're not going to get their call center. So call the agency that they're saying they're from to verify anything if you have any concerns, or call us. That's basically it. Overall, the numbers are majority of them are good right now. So that's a plus. But we always take the good with the bad too. We know that if I'm here speaking about the policing and the numbers being good right now, I have to be prepared to speak to numbers when they get bad. So and we'll do that. So I'm open to any questions if anyone has.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. This is my second time I attended the RUS portion where the whole region was covered by all your counterparts and everything. I'd like to once again thank you very much for coming and keeping us up to date. And one of the harsh realities of life nowadays is that communities like ours will always have crime. And one of the things that always goes sideways on us is when social media gets a hold of one crime, it seems like we're just crime ridden everywhere. So I wanted to thank you for coming to these council meetings and kind of reassuring everybody that yes, we do have crime, but it's really not quite as bad as a lot of people portray it in social media. And I've always thought that the serious is a incredibly safe place to live and, you know, just we have a good lifestyle and everything is just kind of good in that area. So thank you again. Any questions for Sergeant Beta?
And thank you for your worship on that, and I'll touch on that too, on the social media, and I've said it before. You know, I've placed in much larger communities as well, and you know, when there's either a violent crime, maybe an assault, or whether it's break and enter, they go unnoticed because it happens so often that people don't report it, or if they do, report it on social media, it goes out to a much smaller demographic, their friend group. So it's a small community and everyone knows everyone. And when you put something on social media, the whole town hears about it, and it does seem like things are larger than they are. Certainly any crime is too much crime, but I fully agree. Soyuz is a safe place. I'm happy to work here. I enjoy working here. And I think my officers do as well, because the people are good, and yeah, we have people that come through. We are a community that is on a highway that transits to other places, and we certainly see a loop of prolific offenders that touch on the little areas as they go through them. But in general, crime is quite low here.
Any questions for Sergeant Beta?
Just one,
Council?
if you had any instances out on the lake, I guess with all the smoke, there's less people out there, or?
Yeah, so this year, as I mentioned earlier in the year, that one of our priorities this year was to do some lake enforcement, proactive enforcement. Fortunately, that hasn't happened this year. The boat's only been out, it's on the water, but the boat's only been out a handful of times. Just because of we're busy with the fighters, organizing other members coming in and things like that. But it's been ready to go out in the event of any incidences. And I'm glad to say that there wasn't. And maybe it's because of the smoke that we had here, or the fire, less people coming. But we certainly haven't had the reports of any concerns on the lake this year, which is a good thing.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Councillor Harvey, I can barely see a bad reflection on the screen. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming here and providing these statistics. It looks pretty darn good to me, so thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sergeant.
Next item on the agenda is an item from Fortis PC. Are we just receiving this, or somebody?
Yeah, Councillor Bennett asked a question about it by email last week. It seems as though they'd like each municipality, if you had a charity that had a particular project, to nominate it. I don't think they wanted one from every single member of council for their favorite project. That would quickly become unmanageable. So we just put it on here in case council had a sort of a collective vision or knew of a local charity or group that had a project in mind that could use $15,000 grant from Fortis BC that they would award in November of this year.
Council,
I thought might be a good one.
yeah, so any comments from council at all, or how to proceed with this? Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
It's closed.
Yeah, basically, when I seen it, sort of like, I was thinking the sailing club, or you might have, Gerald might have something, or talk about Rotary Club, maybe even some handicap with audible signs, but some of that stuff we can't do because the town's already applied for money for the audible. So I just mentioned to Alan, he said he's bringing forward in case any other councilors has some ideas of someone who could take advantage of that $15,000.
Yeah, it would seem kind of a shame to leave it on the table.
Some plans for some more outdoor stalls and turnouts and things as well.
Even for the
Right.
Do we know what the deadline is?
September 17th.
So should we look forward to a report on it maybe if Seems like there's a little bit of energy on council to move.
Yeah,
forward.
part of the idea was to let the broader community and the charities know as well that there's this opportunity, so if they wanted to approach the town and say, well, hey, why don't we nominate us for this particular fund? How do you see it?
Yeah, I think that would be good. It might be what was it, deadline?
17.
September 7th.
Sometimes in these instances, we would bring it to a community services advisory committee meeting, but we won't have it by then. But it could definitely bring something back with some recommendations, because there are a few groups in the community, or we could advertise to see if anybody wants, that support.
I think Fortis has done that, Joe. I've seen the paper advertised.
I don't know. I have no problem supporting the museum. But if you come back at the next council meeting with a list of 3 or 4, then maybe we can discuss it and make a decision.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty logical way.
Yeah, they need a particular project identified, not just.
We got there is one project that the sailing club has come to the accessibility committee just for support in terms of making the sailing club more accessible. It would be just to extend the sidewalk to the curb, because right now it's not accessible to that point. I don't know what the cost of that is, but 15,000 would cover that, and maybe a few extras. So right now,
There is another accessibility item too, is access to the Goodman washrooms. And possibly a sidewalk from the trail that goes across the grass. I've spoken to op services about it, and it is something that, we should probably consider, because
They're
the
not
access
really
now.
looking for us to go and take care of projects that we normally would fund.
Okay.
They're looking to support local charities,
Oh, I see.
not
Okay.
local companies.
Well, why don't we just let this go, and we'll look forward to a report at our next meeting with some suggestions on it. And we can review it in detail at that time.
All eyes on Mr. Davis. Thank you, Director Davis.
Okay, so moving forward on the agenda, we have some staff reports. The first one is community services, our quarterly report from Director Davis.
Thank you, Your Worship. In terms of administration for community services, we had our mass immunization clinic, COVID-19 at the Sonora Community Center. It started on April 4th. They just recently moved, and they're at the health clinic. So if you still need to get a shot, you can definitely sign up and attend there. We got an awful lot of people yesterday calling. I wanted to know if the clinic was still there after the announcement yesterday. Desert Park Club formed as a registered nonprofit. Prior to that, they weren't. And we've been working with that club to maximize our indoor space. Again, that might change with the regulations into September now. We held a number of accessibility and staff age-friendly meetings, as well as community services advisory committee meetings. The West Bench Dog Park Committee is in the process of wrapping up. I'd like to thank the contributions of the committee members, especially the efforts put forward by members of the public, Bev Bidenoff and Elizabeth Burnett. And we are preparing to identify a new committee to continue with park improvements for dog use. So Okanagan Aquatic Advisory Committee officially started the process of investigating the feasibility of a regional aquatic center. Committee members from the Osoyoos Indian Man towns of Oliver and Osoyoos, along with the consulting team from Sierra Planning, started the process. Our meetings are on Wednesdays, the first Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. And all of our meetings are at Zoom and are available on our town website. We applied for a number of grants, including Canadian Tire Jumpstart Grant to offer sports camps this summer, and also the Human Resource and Development Canada Summer Grant for students. And we were approved for $28,000 to offset student wages. It reflected 75% of the minimum wage per student. staff took part in the British Columbia Recreational Parks Association virtual conference on May 4th to 6th. With over 500 delegates. It was an interesting concept. With COVID, you can actually go back and review and look at specific information, presentations and resources, and it was very well represented. Accessibility Nature Friendly Committee and volunteers from the Pioneer Walkway met to finalize the design and location for a dedicated scent garden. The garden is being proposed near the gazebo. The design was included as part of the Community Foundation grant application, and we will find out in September if we're successful with that. Completed training on Light Ship Act to finalize our working alone procedure, and our consultant, Dennis High, is scheduling training for all staff in September. We conducted our annual ice users meeting and made sure everybody was aware of what the protocols are for COVID and the town expectations when we open. Yesterday, because of the announcement, we did make some last minute changes. And this morning, with the assistance of Brianne, we found out that we won't have any spectators during that time. And that was something that is very helpful on the website. Staff met with Lisa Olson from UBCO to discuss a new program for children who reside in the South Okanagan who are dealing with neurovascular disorders. If we get this program up and running, it'll be 1-to-3 or 1-to-4 ratio, and it would include children from the South Okanagan, not necessarily just from all over Minnesota. We've been working on a partnering agreement with Desert Park Exhibition Society that will be coming back this afternoon for approval. Staff took part in a number of Zoom calls with the BCRPA and related to their COVID-19 regulations. We probably have 1 or 2 every week, and we were invited to take part, present, host if we wanted to, and they were quite informational, and they continue to be. In terms of our programs and special events, we held our fitness classes outside with 2 function last classes until July 23rd, which is beyond our second quarter deadline. Our yoga classes were postponed, but they eventually took place outside at Gyro Park. Our spring break camp was a success. Jamie Foster and Rob Storr managed the camp, did an excellent job. Huge thank you to all of our community volunteers. In lieu of our annual volunteer recognition lunch and award nominees and winners were recognized in the April 21st edition of the Times Chronicle. Signs were made to create a story walk along the Canal Trail. This was an excellent opportunity to enjoy the trail and take in a great story. Unfortunately, the signs and the boards were vandalized, but we're in the process of fixing them and putting them at another location. The Soyuz Market on Main hosted its first farmers market on May the 8th from 9 to 1 at the Town Hall Square. We hosted 2 summer camps, the Cactus Kids Camp and our Pikes Camp for 3 to 5-year-olds, and priority was given to our youth in this area. The pop-up clinic for COVID took place on June 16th and 17th with a great turnout. The second one was scheduled for the 15th and 16th of July, but ended up going to the curling club, which didn't have a great turnout because of the rentals that were going on the road. Our beach volleyball started on the 16th of June. They did follow their COVID-19 protocols. Jason and Amy Barks, organizers, did an excellent job. Our Water Waves Aquatics First Aid provided swimming lessons in the lake this year. We didn't anticipate doing any swimming lessons this year because we didn't have someone to do them, and it was very popular. Music in the Park started on July 16th. Kudos to the 3 Amigos. Unfortunately, it won't continue with our new protocols in place. A number of memorial benches were installed, and we are preparing a new policy that may add memorial trees and picnic tables to the mix. In terms of our facilities, Desert Park Sunrise Marina request for proposal was awarded to Wake Pilot and opened April 1st. All slips are filled with a long wait list. We installed a new adaptive piece of equipment in the weight room, the Glide. The ammonia plant at the Sun Bowl Arena was activated on June 25th. And right now in August, we have a very busy schedule. The new real ice system was installed at the Sun Bowl Arena, and this was subsidized by Fortis and helps reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by flooding with cold water instead of hot water. We purchased a Moby chair to be used at the local beach. This chair will offer a safe and enjoyable opportunity for non-ambulatory people to float on the lake. We haven't had a chance to circulate and get this out. Our goal was to have it on the beach and ready to go rather than somebody utilizing it from our office, just with the smoke and COVID and the smoke again. We had a difficult time getting that done. Just in summary, during the second quarter of 2021, we started to emerge from COVID-19. Our revenues are slowly increasing, and we hope to be back to normal by the middle of September. Now, at the end of September, beginning of October, our goal is to have our annual pass sale in September and be back to full staffing. This will include our regular scheduled leagues and drop-in sports during the evenings. We will continue to follow the health orders by washing our hands, sanitizing our facilities, and to encourage staff to stay home if they're sick. And we look forward to slowly increasing social opportunities and to organize activities in the fall.
Well, thank you very much, Director Davis. Any questions or comments? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. One thing with the Desert Sun Marina, my understanding there was a second phase of maybe more slips. Was that ever moved forward or ever going to be talked about?
There was a discussion in the past, but there's been no discussion at all with that. There was as far as I know, just a very quick drawing. It wasn't a design by any means. And that's pretty much all we have. We never got any costing or nothing on it. So I don't know where that would be right now, but it isn't in our like 5-year package.
All right, okay, I was just curious because there seems to be quite a lineup for people wanting to use boats, so I was just curious, maybe in the back of your mind, or maybe moving forward next year, could be worth some discussion to put on the table.
I know what we had talked about just recently was to review how we actually charge and how we actually allocate those slips. Because at the end of the day, I think we're fairly inexpensive compared to some other places that do that. And there might be an opportunity for the town to recoup more costs and not that difficult.
Your worship, I was gonna say that there's a plan to try to regulate and get a handle on the number of buoys in the foreshore of the lake as well, and provide some moorage opportunities for folks through that tool. Certainly, I've looked at the plan view of additions to the marina. The challenging part there is it's out in the exposed portion of the lake, and what we have right now is entirely protected. So that makes it a little bit more challenging, building marinas out in areas without breakwaters and things.
You like challenges.
Yeah, well, I ran a marina for 16 years, once upon a time. I know about waves of wind and boats getting sunk and all of that good fun. But it would be easy enough to get costing on what would charge you to manufacture the docks and compare that against your revenue. It makes sense. And look at some options for breakwater.
Would that be part of the discussion you're looking into?
Possibly. I think if direction from council would be to bring something forward or to start some of that maybe during budget time, maybe, or just as a review of the marina allocation.
So if I understood, you're in the process of reviewing the marina now, sort of short term?
That's right.
Well, I think you should do it then we can discuss, then it would be something to look at for budget. We need a motion.
What do you think?
You're getting a lot of work today.
Yeah, I know, it's just, we see you haven't got.
Well, he took a lot, he had an anniversary.
I was going to zoom in.
Wish you had, why don't you just do a high level part of the budget process discussion about that?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, for sure.
Is it possible to use a breakwater for a walking pier? Use it as a double sword, or is that too much of fisheries? Is that harder to, it's not harder to get than?
Oh, over to Gina.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's a good question, Counselor. It's, you know, there's a couple things that come to mind right away when we talk about what possibly increasing activity over there and more slips. The first thing is I harken back to our conversations about the pier and about the depth of the lake and this lack of solidity in the bottom of that lake and how we're gonna anchor such a structure. So when we look at the costing for it, I think it's not just gonna be the cost of the construction of the pier. It's going to be, you know, how are we gonna make sure it stays in place? To your point about, or question about, you know, some sort of breakwater. Yes, absolutely. Again, the depth of the lake can prohibit that kind of structure from being placed in the lake. And yes, we would definitely have a lot of hoops to jump through.
The other
to have-
challenge that I just remembered now and hadn't thought of, if you expand the capacity of your marina, what are you gonna do about the vehicle?
That was my next point, yeah.
So
So, no, that's fine, thank you, CEO Chabot. We already have challenges there, so if you put, say, let's say 30 more slips down there, where are 30 more people gonna park their vehicles when they come down with the kids in their picnic baskets? So, you know, there's a lot of challenges. We've sort of been looking as part of the OCP process, just kind of getting a handle on what it might look like to have smaller marinas around the lake. And of course, we'll be having a more thorough in-depth conversation about this as part of the Foreshore Lake zoning bylaw update, at which time we might be discussing the opportunity to have some sort of a buoy rental program. And just a brief reminder that right now, our foreshore leases in front of all the public lands expire in 2022. And the current leases stipulate that we shall not permit anyone to place anything in the foreshore or on the foreshore. So right now, we are in contravention of those lease agreements with the province. So when we look at updating those lease agreements, we'd have to look at actually getting permission to have some sort of a buoy lease program. It's, you just open a big can of worms, which is fine, because I already knew it was.
I'm
The
just
lid was
wondering
already
then if you
ajar.
should do anything in time for budget, or if it becomes part of the larger discussion, because I think about what is our integrated community sustainability plan say? It says
Right.
you should discourage the use of
Mhm.
gasoline powered boats on your.
Right,
Too, and then we'd be doing the opposite.
and what's the carrying capacity of the lake with respect to the use of boats? So it's a big conversation.
So, Councillor, or Director Davis,
Well, that's a vision for the future.
there's something about this chair that causes that error, so
Yeah.
it's like, what's something as well.
When we actually went through the process of doing the marina, there was a lot of people in the community who not necessarily wanted slips. I think they wanted more access to the lake in terms of boat launches.
Yeah.
And that might be something that we can, you know, anticipate that, because I know there's a lot of boat launches that are not really boat launches that people use, which might be part of the bigger conversation.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, thanks for the report. You have a strong mandate in the community. There's a lot to community services, and it's always good to hear the report. I'm really enjoying this reporting process.
Thank you.
So I think we'll move forward. Next item on the agenda is our fire services, and we have our fire chief here today. So, quarterly report.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Rose. As identified in the report that you have in front of you is the quarterly report from April 1st to June 30th, 2021. First, I'd like to honor the dedication to our fatal call volunteers through this period. As you see from the call volume, it's an increase from last year during this period, and subsequently after this period, it got a lot larger. The first thing that I would like to talk about is our emergency response The first item is the average response time at the very bottom of the graph. It's 9 minutes and 24 seconds, which is a good thing for that quarter. It means that we're meeting our response time mandated to be under 10 minutes, 80% of the time. So we're meeting that, which is really good news for the people that are having problems. That means that emergency services is attending to their location in the proper timing. That allows us to do good things for good people. The other part of this is just the emergency response for call type. Really, I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but other than one, which is the motor vehicle incidents, that is a sizable increase from last year at that time, roughly around 20. And the only reason why I'm highlighting that is out of those 20 motor vehicle incidents, that includes 7 pedestrian strikes on the highway, which ended up resulting in one succumbing to the injuries relatively about a week after the incident occurred. That kind of frequency in that short period of time really caused us a concern and alarm. During this period, we continue to provide some mutual aid for the town of Oliver and for BC Wildfire Service, which we actioned a fire initially for them on the old Victor Pass Road. We did good work there to initially do some knockdown, and then it was fully suppressed by aerial operations from the province. We continued to do our training in our cohort groups at that time up until the province released their restrictions. In this time, we saw 6 firefighters maintain and achieve their firefighter 1 and firefighter 2 certifications. That's amazing. It's an amount of work that they have to work towards to get that certification. Most of it is done on their own time for studying, and even their testing where they come in after hours for us to be able to make sure that they're meeting the ERA's requirements for that 1001 certification. We didn't do a lot of public education just because of the restrictions for COVID. There was some fundraising efforts that were put on for Honor House. An Honor House is basically a home away from home in the Lower Mainland for military, police, emergency services personnel. If you're going through change of life, cancer treatments, another medical, you can stay and your family can stay at their house with relatively no cost. And then the last thing is just the hiring of the new fire chief. He came into being on June 7th. Kind of hit the ground on a rolling ball that continued to speed away, and I feel like I've maintained to be on top of that ball for everything. But the last quarter, I'm not going to be able to speak a lot about, but the next quarter I can guarantee give you in-depth clarification for any questions. But that is my report, or my quarterly report as presented to you, Mayor, and through to the rest of council.
Well, thank you very much. I just, fire protection services in our community is over a long period of time. There's been a lot of peaks and valleys, and we're definitely at a peak right now. And the recruitment process is always a good indicator of the health of your fire department, that kind of thing. So it's been a really positive experience over the last little while. So anybody have any questions or comments? Very silent, must have done a great job.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, Corey. I appreciate it, and thanks for the information.
Thank you for your time.
Next on the agenda is report from our planning and development department.
Thank you.
Just go right ahead.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Rhodes. So as you can imagine, it's been another busy quarter in the department. development applications and inquiries are continuing to be received, and again, they're up from last year at this time. You know, I was able to attend the online planning institute of BC conference, which came from Whitehorse, and it was there was a lot of really good information gathered through that process, and it was interesting to hear all the challenges that communities are having to address right now, particularly around housing, which seemed to be a big topic, as you can imagine. So with respect to special projects, of course, exciting to be coming to you this afternoon with first reading recommendation for first reading of our new official community plan, and it's gone through a lot of time to get here, partly because of COVID restrictions around gathering, et cetera, but we're pretty excited about that. The boundary expansion project for the east side, which includes those 4 parcels at the corner of 3rd and Highway 3 rather, and 62nd, is that full complete package has now been submitted to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing after an extensive referral process. So kind of a recap of some of the development projects going on in the community. Of course, the bills at Peanut Lake, that continues to be a top priority for our building inspector. Metal Art Phase 2 has their preliminary review letter completed, and they're in the process of completing all the works on the site to have the subdivision approval. Metal Art Phase 3, we've received the comments back from the Agricultural Land Commission, and we'll be coming to final adoption with that in September. And of course, the PLR, which is a preliminary review letter, will be submitted as well. Happy to report the Lobelia subdivision for 15 new single-family homes is back on track. And they're just doing the very final engineering drawings and cost estimates, which of course need to be updated with increases in cost for piping, et cetera. So we anticipate them getting in the ground in September there, as well as of course Metal Art. That new subdivision at the top of Sawgrass, which includes that soil removal permit, that is currently underway. I don't know if you've had a chance to get up there, but there's been a lot of rock moved up there, and there's going to be some pretty amazing views from those new sites. So the Lakeshore Drive condominium complex, you may have noticed the for sale sign has gone up on that particular complex. Quite interesting that I think every second phone call I get regarding that is about whether or not they can short-term rental their condominiums at that site. So that's going to be coming back to council very shortly when we talk about the zoning bylaw update, and possibly looking at the short-term rental as a separate project outside of the zoning bylaw, because I do anticipate that taking an exceptional amount of time. So with respect to economic development, of course, the town is taking a breather from the BC provincial nomination program, and the reason for that, while we continue to process a couple of applications, the reason we're taking a little bit of a breather is, first off, there's almost no commercial sites left that are vacant in our downtown core for people to open their new businesses, and there's limited spaces for people to rent, to live in while they open their new businesses. We've just had to give support for one new business that will be opening a restaurant. We had to provide direct support to the province to let them know they were okay with these people living in Oliver, as they were unable to secure a place of residence here. A lot of business development inquiries come in. 40 new businesses, if you can believe it, have started in our community since the beginning of 2021, which is quite something. And that includes, of course, 6 local businesses that have changed ownership. Myself, the CEO, and the Director of Operational Services are working with the Osoyoos Airport Development Society on the Airport Development Management Agreement, which will be a management agreement for them to manage the construction out at the airport for the monies received through the CERT program. So again, at the end of July 2021, 57 building permit applications that include 13 single-family dwellings, 21 permits for renovations, etc. 4 permits for 16 total residential units over at Peanut Pond. So our building permit numbers are going to continue to go up to the end of the year, which is of course good news. And you may have noticed there's a new commercial building going in on Main Street. And it's the first new commercial building on Main Street in a long time. So we're super excited about that because it's already served as a catalyst for other property owners. We've now reviewing a development permit for properties across from AG Foods for mixed residential commercial buildings on those vacant properties. So it really is a catalyst. As soon as one person comes out, it really gets the drive going. So we're happy about that. Bylaw services, of course, were kept fairly busy this summer. We're limited to our bylaw supervisor and our one seasonal bylaw enforcement officer after not receiving any submissions for multiple requests for people to submit for interest in either seasonal bylaw officer or the park masters. So we're gonna look at maybe how we might be able to recruit next year for those positions. Of course, there was an increase in the number of vehicles in our community, as we probably all noticed, as COVID restrictions lifted. We got very, very busy. Continuing to monitor the RVs and trailers camping overnight in various locations throughout the community and then just outside the community, particular up above Dividend Ridge. And unsightly property notices seem to increase. I suspect that's a result of the fact that people just didn't come to some of their places over the winter and then again over the summer. Lots of complaints about the teens partying in the night in various local parks. And I can attest to the fact that it looks like a roaring good time, especially when they're right in front of my place. We have received a lot of complaints. Unfortunately, they seem to have our schedule down pretty pat because they show up around 11 o'clock at night. And it's something that the police have been responding to, and they've actually had several arrests of drinking under the age or drinking while driving as a result of attending at those teen parties. So it's a very, very, very busy season in the boat trailer parking lot. And yeah, so we anticipate that extending through to the fall, especially as the smoke lifts. I'm sure people have delayed their holidays, which is what I'm hearing from the Hotel Association. Many people have delayed their holidays into the fall because of the smoke. So in summary, basically, lots and lots of high calls in emails. It is beginning to slow a little bit as the number of real estate listings decreases. Redevelopment of the downtown areas, it transitions from single family to multifamily is also continue to, we expect that to continue. Again, lack of housing for our current residents as those looking to move into the area continues to be a concern. I am happy to report that there are 2 developers looking to build purpose-built rentals in our community. You'll recall their council previously looked at a proposal for one on between 89th and Nighthawk. So there's now 2 that are across from the elementary school looking to put multifamily rentals rentals in there. Of course, we'll be coming forward with the RFP for the zoning bylaw update and the Foreshore Lake zoning bylaw update. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Great report. Any questions or comments?
Thank
Or you're
you.
getting all fucky again?
That's fantastic. We'll wait and see how this afternoon. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a quality
Thank
of
you,
your
Councillor
report.
King.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I guess that kind of concludes our business today. So we'll look for a motion to terminate the meeting. Councillor King. Councillor Bennett.